U.S. history, we have made it to the final week of our online learning experiment known as Semester 3, 8 weeks of online. And so here we go into the final week. We're going to do some things a little bit different this week. Number one, maybe you've already checked and saw that we are not doing an on deck this week. There is no on deck this week. What I plan on doing is I plan on reteaching just one thing. And then I have, I guess, one final question, one final, I guess, tidbit that you guys will need to do for this upcoming final week. So no on deck this week, our final week, praise the Lord, and a little reteaching, and then also your final question, your final assignment. So here we go. So let me get things rolling here. Slide this out. And here we go. All right. So we are in semester 3. It's the last week of school. You know, I love my career. I love what I do. 26 years, 27 years into the biz. This year will go down as one for the record books. And so here we go. Oops. So again, I'm going to reteach one thing and then give you your final questions, and you guys can give me your answers. So here we go. And again, first of all, no on decks this week. No on decks this week. All right. Well, hey, what I want to do is what Mr. Flynn occasionally does is I try to make learning meaningful. So we're learning about history. We're learning about things from like a long time ago. And then, how do we make it relevant? How do we make it practical? And so I want to teach real quick, reteach the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Of course, this is the one that we did in the Vietnam War. When Vietnam was split, kind of like roughly right along this line right here of North Vietnam and South Vietnam. And again, as we were defending South Vietnam from a communist invasion, if you remember, the Ho Chi Minh Trail is that the enemy, the Viet Cong, the North Vietnamese army, basically did not go through the border, did not go through, that traditional border, but separating the two countries. They went around, and they went around countries or through countries of like Laos and Cambodia. And as you can see, they got themselves pretty deep, if you follow the red line, into areas where they were able to invade South Vietnam without coming across the border, and how they were able to infiltrate, pretty deep, into South Vietnam. And it's if you look at it, it's a pretty smart tactical ploy, to loop around, to go around. If you remember, what happens is when Richard Nixon becomes president, it's about peace with honor, but he expands the war in Vietnam. He saw the Ho Chi Minh Trail as a threat to American lives, to our objective. And so if you remember, he increased the war by bombing Laos, bombing Cambodia, really about bombing the Ho Chi Minh Trail and the supply lines that were basically being used to invade South Vietnam. And then eventually we sent boots on the ground into Laos and Cambodia. So, it's kind of like that question you guys had to answer. You're aware of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Do you bomb it? Do you not bomb it? And so that's my little reteaching moment of the purpose of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And then to make learning meaningful, I think this is something that's kind of neat. And this is kind of where we started the beginning of the year. We started the beginning of the year dealing with the killing of Osama bin Laden. At the beginning of your freshman year, it was about the events of 9/11. And your sophomore year, it was about 10 years later, how we finally got Osama bin Laden. So to make learning meaningful, and this is somewhat similar to the Ho Chi Minh Trail in a sense that when we went after bin Laden and the Taliban government and the terrorists in Afghanistan, we basically invaded Afghanistan. And we were bombing targets, and we had boots on the ground in Afghanistan. And for the most part, we were able to flush the enemy away. And what we found out, what we discovered, is that the enemy basically fled Afghanistan, and then they went into Pakistan. So if you remember, we're not at war with Pakistan. I don't know if we're really at war with Afghanistan. We're just at war with the terrorists. But the enemy is basically now crossing the border into Pakistan. And so what was happening was, we knew all along that a lot of the Taliban or the Al-Qaeda or any terrorist group was living in Pakistan. And what was happening was they would basically leave Pakistan, come into Afghanistan, do their attacks, very similar to like Vietnam, quick ambush, quick strikes, and then they would flee back into Pakistan. And they kind of felt like, okay, there's the border. We're relatively safe. And so what the United States had to make a decision very similar to the Ho Chi Minh Trail is okay, we know that the bad guys are in Pakistan. Do we invade Pakistan with boots on the ground? Do we bomb these targets? But if you do that, again, you risk the element of escalating this war that is, in Afghanistan, and it could flush into Pakistan. And so what the United States decided to do is that we took the war into mostly these border regions in Pakistan. So the tribal areas along the border, probably not the most civilized, like cities like Karachi over here, the capital of Islamabad. And so what the United States decided to do is very similar to the Ho Chi Minh Trail. We knew where the enemy was, and so we basically started to bomb those targets, and we used our predator drones. And so our drones really became more escalated in bombing Pakistan. And so a lot of things were kind of similar where we're at war in Afghanistan, but now we're bombing Pakistan, and we probably had boots on the ground in Pakistan too. We probably didn't publicize it too much. And, one of the biggest differences in Vietnam, news reporters kind of had free reign to kind of like travel and kind of see things. We don't allow that in the wars that we're in now. The press is pretty limited on where they can view and what they can report on. And so very similar to the Ho Chi Minh Trail is that the enemy kind of fled, in this war on terror into Pakistan, but we as the United States made a decision to go into another sovereign country of Pakistan. And if you remember back at the beginning of the year, when we got bin Laden, he was in Abbottabad. And Abbottabad, I'll kind of use my mouse here to kind of circle it, is just kind of like north of the capital, like the interior. So again, for bin Laden to be hiding out in Afghanistan didn't make much sense because, we're looking for him in Afghanistan. So being in Pakistan, maybe thought relatively safe because, the United States, we just can't invade other countries. Of course, we did. If you can think back when we got bin Laden, that we kind of did that secret raid. So kind of a correlation here of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the Vietnam War, and how the war in Afghanistan, the war on terror, kind of the same thing. The enemy kind of fled across the border, thought they were relatively safe, but the United States made a decision that that's where the enemy is. That's who we're going to try to kill, and that's who we're going to try to capture. So kind of a correlation there between the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the Vietnam War, and the war on terror in Afghanistan. Okay. Here we go. Final questions, final answers. And so as we head into the final week, I look back at what we've done, not only the 7 weeks of semester 3, but we plugged along with work even during the first phase of the shutdown. If you remember, our shutdown was 3 weeks and then spring break. And then we thought we might be back in school doing our thing, but we weren't. And so really we've done about 10 weeks of online learning. And so as we head into the final week, what I'm going to ask you to do, number one, don't do your on deck because we're not going to have any on deck. I hope you watched the video. And so you kind of saw the reteaching of the Ho Chi Minh Trail and the Vietnam War, along with, how the enemy kind of does that today. They kind of hide in spots today where they think they're safe, and we make decisions whether or not if we're going to go beyond borders and whatnot to go get them. So I don't have a living document question for you this week. I have nothing new for you to turn in. I think for the most part, you guys have done a great job of, meeting your deadlines, doing your on deck, getting them turned in, your living documents. And so Synergy, by the time I launch this video Sunday night, Synergy will be, which is the master grade book, should be updated. And you can check Synergy to kind of see where you are. Again, it's credit, no credit. So if you're happy with everything that you've done so far, then you're good. You're done. You don't need to add anything new. I'm not assigning anything new. If there's something out there that you see that you didn't do, like a 0, I think we call it a 0 back in the day, you're more than welcome to do that and get that turned in. I'm not exactly sure what the deadline is for next week. I think it's Friday, June 12th, but waiting for Mr. Daly to kind of let us know. So no new learning this week. The reteaching, I think, kind of covered it. And then we kind of threw in some learning information to make learning meaningful. So for the most part, we're done. I hope we're back at it next year. I know you guys will not be in U.S. history, but I hope, everyone's back in school next year and we can mingle and we can just talk and teach and learn and just kind of carry out our business kind of as normal. So that's what we have for this final week. So again, appreciate everything you guys have done, above and beyond probably a lot of other schools, but what we do here at Schoolcraft. So have a great summer. Be safe. Email me if you guys have any questions. I could say something about Zoom, but nobody will Zoom in. That's okay. I wouldn't Zoom in either. So that's what we have. Signing out until the fall of 2020. And appreciate everything you guys have done. You guys are awesome rock stars. Mr. Flynn is done. In 3, 2, 1, peace.